There was a time when capturing family memories meant winding up an 8mm film camera in the 1960s. Hoisting a heavy VHS camcorder in the 1980s. Or cradling a trusty Sony Handycam that carried us into the early 2000s. That's me at 19, second semester of college and learning how to fly. My father stood below with his camera, carefully recording not just what I was doing, but who I was becoming. Back then, home movies weren't polished stories, they were raw glimpses of life. On Friday nights, the living room would dim into a theater, and with popcorn in hand and cross-legged on the floor, we'd watch our lives flicker across the wall, tiny pieces of magic that made ordinary moments extraordinary. If you were lucky enough to have a camcorder plugged straight into the TV, the wonder was instant. No waiting for film to be developed, no patience required. Just the delight of stepping back into a memory before it had even faded. That spark, that closeness, that sense of being carried away inside of a moment is what I've always wanted for Elizabeth. Not just a record of her childhood, but a story. Her story. A living mosaic of laughter and discovery and love woven together like her very own movie. Not a tedious play-by-play, but something cinematic, alive with music and sound and imagination. A film that glows in the heart like a familiar melody from long ago. One that she could share with her own family someday. And maybe, when the years have carried her forward, she'll walk in the footsteps we take now, hearing echoes of joy, feeling the warmth of love that still lingers in these places. A reminder of that life, like film, flickers by quickly. Waking at 4 in the morning after a night of thunderstorms should have been hard. The air itself seemed charged, quiet, expectant, as if it knew something special was about to unfold. For weeks leading up to today, we had visited numerous farmers markets in the area. I'd been weaving a playful story for Elizabeth, telling her that we'd rise early to explore a new farmers market a few hours away. When her sleepy eyes blinked open, she wasn't exactly thrilled, but as her hair was brushed and the bags were zipped, I pulled out my phone and handed her a secret, a short teaser video I quietly stitched together months before. She pressed play. Her whole face lit up with joy, and with a breathless smile, she turned to me. "Are we really doing this today, Dad?" Mom and I smiled back. Yes, and with that, our adventure truly began.
The lightning shows my weakness.
Keep going to the right.
Thunder knows my secret.
Where's the counters?
The storm is like a brother. It knows me like no other. So let it rumble, let it roll, 'cause it's all I know. You can keep your calm and easy. That peaceful life ain't for me. The harshest gales call out from the tree, like it can sense the reckless in me. And when the clouds roll in, it's like I'm home again. Don't need your safe and sound. Let the rain come down. Let the rain come down. So let the rain come down. Let the rain come down.
We took a taxi from the airport. After we dropped our bags in at the market, a charming boutique hotel nestled in the heart of Pike Place, we walked just a block to dive into the largest farmers market we had ever experienced. From the moment we stepped in, it was amazing. The air itself was alive. We wandered northwest along Pike Place Street, passing the original Starbucks, which opened its doors in the spring of 1971. At first glance, Pike Place felt like a flea market, but with every step it transformed into something extraordinary. Stalls overflowed with hand-tied bouquets, jars of golden honey and jam filled tables, bins of fresh produce still damp with the morning dew, and seafood so fresh it seemed to whisper of the ocean. We stopped at Saucio's Fruit and Produce, where they greeted us with samples of hand-picked cherries and peaches that tasted just like summer. I could have lived off the fruit alone from this place, as it was more flavorful and juicy than any grocery store produce. Naturally, we grabbed a small sack of cherries and a few peaches to take back with us.
Thank you so much.
Our next experience was at Pure Food Fish Market, where Elizabeth struck up a conversation with one of the fishermen. She was fascinated by what she called the long red things, which turned out to be Alaskan king crab legs. Her eyes widened at the size. We ended our market visit with a light lunch beneath bright red umbrellas on Pike Street, with a hum of voices and street music surrounding us, before strolling back to the hotel to catch our breath. It had been a very busy morning, to say the least. By early afternoon, the city pulled us further in. We wandered down Pine Street, peeking in the shops before climbing aboard the monorail for a quick ride to Seattle Center. In minutes, we were standing in the shadow of the Space Needle, a symbol of imagination pointing skyward. At its base, we stepped into a different kind of dream, Chihuly Garden and Glass. Room by room, Dave Chihuly's creations burst into color. Towers of blown glass twisting like coral reefs. Ceilings of flowers that glowed as if lit by the sunlight. Chandeliers that shimmered like frozen fireworks. For Elizabeth, it was a storybook come alive. For us, it was a reminder of how art can catch light and turn it into wonder.
No, I'm heating that up. You're going to notice it doesn't really look that colorful anymore. That's because whenever anything gets to around 2200 degrees, it starts emanating that glow that you see coming out of our furnace. That's because it's cooling down so fast, it has to release that energy somehow, and does that as light. So he just took that to a wood block, that re-centered the bubble.
We ended our day on a semi-private large rooftop of our hotel with panoramic views over Puget Sound and Pike Place Market. Mount Rainier stood quietly to the southeast, while the peaks of Olympic National Park painted the horizon to the northwest. It was a perfect place to wind down, to take it all in, and to reflect on an incredible first day. The morning began quietly, long before the city had truly awakened. Pike Place Market was so alive the day before, and now it stood hushed, crowd still hours away. Delivery vans lined the curbs and doors were opened as vendors carried in boxes of flowers and bins of produce. It was as if we were backstage, watching the market prepare for its daily performance. By 7:30 we were at King Street Station, ready to board Amtrak north into Canada. Walking inside felt like stepping back in time. High above us, the ceiling blossomed with ornate plasterwork, floral designs carefully restored to their 1906 beauty. Art Deco chandeliers cast a soft glow over the terrazzo floors, while rows of tall, dark pews filled the room, inviting passengers to sit and wait. Some were lost in thought while others were on their phones or sipping coffee waiting to depart. This was quite the cathedral for rail travel. Soon we left the station and the city's concrete faded in a forest of pine and spruce. Our train traced the edge of Puget Sound where sailboats swayed lazily in the water and shorebirds stood frozen in the shallows. North of Everett, we crossed the Snohomish River. Out the window, an old white dairy barn stood across the highway, checkerboard fields spreading around it. For a moment, it felt like Kansas had followed us here, a reminder that beauty often hides in the everyday, waiting for us to notice. The tracks continued north, around Samish Bay, where neat rows of oyster beds stretched towards the horizon. As we approached Bellingham, our train took one of its more scenic turns, curving sharply around Teddy Bear Cove. The clear, calm waters of Chuckanut Bay were a sight to see. Crossing into British Columbia, we looked towards Colmay's Point. The shoreline seemed alive. Dozens of bald eagles soared effortlessly overhead. Many other eagles crowded the rocky beach. There must have been 50, maybe more. One of those rare moments that stops time, a gift we hadn't expected, but we would never forget. At last, after more than 4 hours, the Vancouver skyline rose before us. We rolled past the steel span of the Patuyo Bridge and into Pacific Central Station, our terminus. Customs was quick, and soon we were in a cab heading to our hotel, the elegant Fairmont waterfront. Our first excursion was the Vancouver Aquarium, tucked inside Stanley Park. Tanks glowed with schools of fish, jellyfish pulsed like living lanterns, and tropical birds chattered in the rainforest enclosures.
Fireflies in the yard, everything's a work of art. Already got everything we need to dance in the glow. It's always in my head, can never get enough. That summer feeling left. Me and my friends dance until we drop, and the good times don't stop. The good times don't stop. The good times don't stop. Late nights sitting under starlight, searching for the meaning in the beauty that we see. Come bathe in the glow. Back roads where the magic unfolds. Happiness is simple, all you need is to believe. Come jump in the glow. It's always in my head, can never get enough. That summer feeling left. Me and my friends dance until we drop.
Elizabeth was captivated by the interactive touch pool, essentially an underwater petting zoo. With gentle curiosity, she ran her pinky finger over the sea urchins. The experience was tactile, an intimate connection with the sea that made it feel less like a children's experience more like an introduction to a new world.
Ooh, it's always in my head. Can never get enough. That summer feeling rough. Ooh, me and my friends dance until we drop, and the good times don't stop.
Do you see anything else you want? That is insane.
Thank you. Yes.
Wow. What do you think about that? Show us what you have.
After our adventure at the Hello Kitty Cafe, we wandered through downtown and out to Cole Harbor. The waterfront unfolded before us, seaplanes arriving and departing, yachts drifting from their slips, bicycles humming along the split pathways, and people strolling as if time had just slowed for them. The city breathed with energy, yet somehow it felt serene. We meandered along the well-landscaped sidewalks and bike paths before stopping at the Drop, a massive blue sculpture that looked like a solitary oversized raindrop hitting the pavement. It marked our turning point to migrate back towards the hotel. Dinner was quick and classically Canadian. Tim Hortons. Not gourmet, but a rite of passage. It satisfied our hunger before making it back to our room. While we thought we'd start winding down for the evening, the day wasn't finished for Elizabeth. Fairmont's rooftop pool called her name. The evening air was cool, but she dove in anyway. The day had begun in the hushed streets of Seattle and ended beneath the Canadian sky. A day stitched together not by miles traveled, but by the kind of moments that linger long after the journey ends. The morning began with the steady patter of rain on the streets of Vancouver. After a light breakfast at the waterfront center, we wandered slowly through the mist, taking in one last glimpse of the city before our journey turned towards the sea. As part of the concierge group, the transition to the ship was seamless. Luggage dropped, passports shown, and security cleared, all in just 10 minutes. No long lines, no crowds pressing in, just calm efficiency and the feeling that something special was waiting just ahead. In the terminal, Disney photographers stood ready, their cameras capturing the anticipation in every face. Elizabeth's smile was stretched wide and her excitement impossible to contain. We passed through the final security check, then down the gangplank, where we stepped into another world. There was a fanfare waiting for us. Applause, greetings, the kind of warmth that makes you feel not just like a passenger, but like a character stepping into an opening scene of a story. made our way straight to Triton's for the concierge lunch, a meal that was elegant and unhurried. Perfect welcome aboard. And then, with an hour still to go before our staterooms opened, Elizabeth spotted something irresistible: the water slide. The temperature barely grazed the 60s, but no child sees weather as an obstacle when a slide is waiting. In moments, she was at the top, laughing as she plunged into the water again and again, while we watched from the deck with smiles of our own. Ice cream and fresh fruit on deck 9 fueled her adventures until it was finally time to see our cabin.
Was it fun? Bitsy! Right here on the side. Bitsy! Was fun!
On deck 8, the doors were still closed, but a kind crew member waved us through early. Down the hall we went, and then to our cabin.
About halfway down, it looks like.
Get your badge.
There's a thing with tape.
It's green.
There it goes. Now push down.
Inside, we found a stateroom waiting that felt like a home at sea. A complimentary fruit basket sat ready, a thoughtful gesture in our celebration of our 25th anniversary. It was a small touch, but one that meant much. By late afternoon, the rain had lifted. The sun had broken through, warming the breeze into something almost perfect. And then, right on time, the horn sounded, and at 4 o'clock sharp, the ship began to move.
Slow head starboard.
We sat in our cushy lounge chairs as we glided beneath the great span of the Lions Gate Bridge, the steel arches soaring overhead. The channel opened wide and the Pacific was waiting beyond. The voyage was well underway, 8 days and 7 nights bound for Alaska, a journey that promised mountains, glaciers, and memories that would last a lifetime. The day dawned cool and rainy, typical weather for southeast Alaska, a region that many forget that is in fact a temperate rainforest. But unlike the Amazon, this forest is shrouded in mist, lined with steep fjords, softened by the rhythm of rain on the seawater. It's a landscape that feels almost Scandinavian, fitting for the kind of quiet wonder a voyage like this inspires. And even on a rainy day, the Disney wonder held more than enough magic within its walls. Among the sweetest traditions on board is a simple act of giving. Children exchange small trinkets with one another, tokens of friendship that turn strangers into companions. It's a gentle reminder, especially for the young, that joy often shines brightest when it is shared. the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, Elizabeth stepped into a world where mirrors sparkle and fairy godmothers work their craft. She chose her own princess gown, paired it with glittering accessories, and sat patiently while her hair, makeup, and nails were touched with magic.
In a world full of dreams, where the moonlight softly beams, there's a dream, live a tale. We're dreaming, can't you see? In a place filled with light, where the flowers bloom so bright, every shade pure delight, we are dancing day to night.
At the end, a tiara was placed on her head, not a plastic crown, but a quality keepsake to mark the moment. When she looked up, it was clear. She wasn't just dressed as a princess, she was one.
We escorted your individual thrones for a tea celebration like no other. Let the arrivals begin!
Stop with my princess man.
Introducing Chloe of the Disney
Beautiful mascots.
Introducing Elizabeth of the Disney Wonder.
Magic only grew at the royal court tea, where princesses welcomed her into their circle. The room glowed with soft light, delicate china, and laughter. Petite sandwiches and sweet desserts were served, but the true treasure was in the stories that were told, the signatures that were collected, and the memories sealed in a little book designed to follow her on future voyages.
Haven't we made it, my love? Oh, honey, look how we made it this far.
In the evening, the grand stage of the Walt Disney Theater lifted the day to another level. Though the production of the Golden Mickeys was scaled for the ship, it held all the energy and spectacle of Broadway. With concierge privileges, we slipped in through a side entrance, our seats placed directly at the center of the first row. From there, the music, costumes, and storytelling felt alive, personal, as if the show were staged just for us.
I've said it like 1,000 times. I'm a backstage kind of gal. I agreed to fill in as host, but I don't even know what I would do in a big production.
It's when you hear the music playing, hear what I'm saying, make you feel alright. Grab somebody, come on, let's go have a minute.
It had been a day of giving and receiving, of trinkets tucked into door pouches, of princess gowns and Broadway lights, of new friends and timeless memories. By evening, the wonder felt less like a ship and more like a world of its own. Tomorrow, the story would only grow richer. Not to too much surprise, the morning dawned gray and wet once again, the kind of steady Alaskan rain that seems to hang in the air rather than fall from the sky. Too chilly for swimming, Elizabeth spent much of her day at the Disney Oceaneers Club, a place that felt like its own enchanted kingdom. Here kids would play, craft, and imagine together, their energy transformed into creativity. But by late afternoon, the real adventure began. Our ship slipped into Endicott Arm, a breathtaking fjord carved by ancient ice. Towering cliffs rose on either side, streaked with countless waterfalls that tumbled down from snow-capped peaks. We pressed forward. The sea itself began to change, dotted now with floating shards of blue ice, each one a fragment of a glacier's timeless story. Soon, we boarded a smaller tender to draw even closer. The air turned crisp and was full of rain. The water glittered with broken ice from the recent calving. Those dramatic moments when the glacier sends a piece of itself crashing into the fjord. Our journey continued into the mysterious waters of Ford's Terror, a narrow and twisting inlet with a name as dramatic as its landscape. Story goes that in 1899 a U.S. Navy crewman named Ford rowed a small skiff into the fjord at slack tide. When the tide turned, the violent currents nearly trapped him inside, an experience so harrowing the place has carried his name ever since. The scenery was otherworldly. Cliffs cloaked with moss, waterfalls at every bend, snow still clinging to the peaks above. Here, nature wasn't just beautiful, it was once in a lifetime. On our way back to the Wonder, the day's greatest surprise awaited us. A whale and her calf surfaced not far from our path. In that moment, time itself seemed to pause, reminding us that in Alaska, wonder often arrives when you least expect it. When we woke up this morning, the ship was sliding quietly in Taya Inlet, steep cliffs guiding us towards the small but storied town of Skagway. Once a bustling hub for prospectors chasing dreams of gold, today it welcomes travelers chasing adventure of a different kind.
Welcome aboard the famous White Pass and Yukon Route Railroad. Constructed over 120 years ago, today we will be traveling over 20 miles of narrow gauge track and climbing nearly 3,000 feet in elevation to scale the White Pass summit. Our trip will take about 3 hours, and while our train does briefly cross the Canadian border, we will stay on board the entire time, so you do not need your passports. At the summit, our train will take a loop in the tracks, which will turn us around so we can face the opposite direction for the return trip to Skagway, so everyone will get to see both sides of the train ride today. You'll have one side going up and the opposite going down. During our trip, I'll be pointing out some of the scenery and sharing with you some of the history of the White Pass Railroad and the Klondike Gold Rush which spurred its construction. My name is Max, and I'll be your tour guide and your narrator today.
Our morning adventure began aboard the narrow-gauge White Pass and Yukon Route Railroad, a marvel of engineering carved into unforgiving mountainsides in the late 1800s. The train clung to cliffs and wound its way past waterfalls, canyons, and wooden trestles as we climbed towards the summit. Much like days before, the rain and mist were relentless around the peaks as we ascended. At times we stood in the cool air outside between the rail cars to have a front row seat to the beauty. It's almost impossible to imagine tens of thousands of stampeders and beasts of burden hauling hundreds of pounds of supplies up these very passes in search of fortune. For every story of triumph, there were countless tragedies, and the silence of the wilderness seemed to carry both. At the summit, we reached 59 degrees north, the farthest point of our voyage. From here, the Klondike lay just beyond, a land that lured so many, but yielded riches for so few. Gold Rush era buildings, restored to their frontier charm, stood shoulder to shoulder like characters in a storybook. Colorful facades advertised saloons, outfitters, and trading posts, while the air carried the scent of fresh fudge and kettle corn. We darted between shops, Elizabeth's eyes lighting up at displays of carved totems, polished stones, and soft, husky plush toys. Each store seemed to hold a small treasure, a reminder that Skagway is more than its history. It's a place where stories continue to be told, both old and new. The highlight of Elizabeth's day, and perhaps her entire trip, came in the afternoon at the Mushers Camp. At the base of the camp is where we learned about Dyea, now a ghost town, but once was a gateway for thousands of stampeders climbing the Chillicoot Trail in the 1800s. Standing there, with the huskies and the mountains all around, it was easy to feel the echoes of that era. Dreamers and their dogs pushing against impossible odds in search of something more. Moss covered the forest floor, and between the trees we could see the Taya River smooth the valley floor below. Before long, the air rang with excited barks as teams of Alaskan Huskies strained against their harnesses, eager to run. Elizabeth could hardly contain her joy as she watched the dog surge forward, pulling a wheeled sled over the soft trails of the rainforest. The ride was fast and exhilarating, dogs working as one, their paws pounding the earth in rhythm.
Iditarod in the pavilion. All right, guys, follow me. Just watch your step here. I never trip over that. I miss you guys, apparently.
Talk about puppies?
Any questions? I know you have questions.
How do dogs run so fast?
You know, they're made that way. It's in their DNA. How do you run so fast? You know,
Look at Puppy. Hi, Puppy.
Hi, puppy.
Are you cold? Look at that. What is that?
No.
Afterward, Elizabeth met the dogs up close, stroking their thick fur and laughing as a few licked her hands with wet enthusiasm.
So cute.
If anybody else is
Give him a
ready for
kiss.
the gift shop, you feel free to give us a peek.
That evening, back aboard the Disney Wonder, we traded sled dogs for jazz and we dined at Tiana's place. Inspired by The Princess and the Frog, the restaurant burst with New Orleans spirit. Golden lights, lively music, and servers who danced between the tables carrying trays of Cajun delights. For a moment, it felt as though we had stepped straight into the Louisiana Bayou itself. By the end of the night, the beignets dusted in powdered sugar and laughter still lingering in the air, it was clear that the day had been one for the memory books, an adventure where history, nature, and a little Disney magic all met underneath the northern sky. It's a little after 3 a.m. here, after 6 a.m. back home. In late May, Alaska plays tricks with time and the sun has refused to set completely, leaving the landscape in a silver twilight glow. If Anna and Elizabeth weren't still fast asleep, I'd journey out on the cold deck in the wind to see things firsthand. That opportunity, I suppose, will have to wait. From the pier, we drove about 20 minutes to Juneau International Airport. On the tarmac, the sight was thrilling. A row of helicopters waiting, each destined to lift travelers into the wild.
Gotcha.
Up and down, turn. I forgot to ask for it.
Oh.
Seatbelt. So this is on the road.
Yes, you have to. Because you have to be able to hear.
Our pilot, Amanda, greeted us warmly, and soon we were buckled in.
Hi, how are you? The blade's above your head.
As the helicopter rose, the airport and countryside shrank below, and almost instantly civilization gave way to the wilderness. We soared over Mendenhall Lake, surface dotted with shards of ice, and the thunder of Nugget Falls was visible even from the air. Amanda curved us up over Nugget Creek, where the snow-capped mountains pressed in, and pivoted towards the massive Mendenhall Glacier itself. From above, the glacier looked alive. Blue veins ran through its surface. Ridges and crevices stretched like frozen waves. At one point, Amanda pointed out Suicide Basin, a high pocket of ice and water tucked against the mountainside. At the time, it seemed just another striking feature of the landscape, but weeks later, it would release in a catastrophic record-breaking flood that forever reshaped part of Juneau. Touching down on the glacier was like landing on another planet.
That the only wavelength that can go through it is blue, so it goes throughout the ice, and then that's why we see the blue.
Our guide, Anne, led us across streams in impossibly blue meltwater, some trickling gently, others rushing like miniature rivers.
It depends on, like, sometimes we'll get like a stretch of 2 weeks of rain, while maybe 2 of those days, and then we'll get a stretch of sun.
Are these deciduous trees really up this high, or does this stuff blow up?
They're all alder trees, so all the bushes are actually alder trees. They grow in like thick.
Oh, gotcha.
So when we get like pretty decent winds up on the glacier, and they'll blow off. They'll kind of sit on top of the snow, melt down, or they'll sit on top of the ice. But yeah.
Elizabeth found joy in sticking her walking pole into holes and crevices in the ice just to see how deep they were. This was a bit reminiscent of her sticking a walking stick in the creek back home. We bent to collect the glacial water and it tasted clean, colder and purer than anything bottled, like sipping from the heart of the earth itself. In fact, it tasted a lot like fresh snow. It was humbling, standing on a river of ice older than memory, and alive and moving beneath our feet. Upon returning to Juneau, we walked around the shops on Franklin Avenue for a while before collecting a souvenir, a big one, a whale vertebrae for our home science and library collection. It was too large for our carry-on, so it was shipped home where it arrived safely a few weeks later. Lunch was down the street in an open-area food truck park where tables were under large awnings and surrounded by tabletop fire pits. It was amazing.
you vote?
Pilot or guide?
Guys.
Yeah.
Alright, you can grab your stuff out of your little cubbies, and then I'll help you guys figure it out.
Okay, there's Mama. Dad. Woo.
Back aboard the Disney Wonder, we traded glacier boots for theater seats. The show was Frozen, a perfect echo of the icy world we had just walked upon. From our front row seats, we watched as marionettes, costumes, and powerful voices brought a familiar story to life. Snow seemed to fall inside the theater, and Elizabeth's face lit up with the same awe she carried on the glacier earlier in the day.
Do you want to build a snowman?
I know where we have to go.
Sitting there, a beautiful stranger, tall and fair. I want to stuff some chocolate in my face.
Our morning today began with a bit of disappointment. We had been so excited to take a seaplane over Misty Fjords National Monument, a land carved by glaciers and draped in mist, often called the Yosemite of the North. But Alaska reminded us who was in charge. Low clouds and heavy weather prevented all flights into the park. It was a reminder that in this part of the world, nature sets the schedule. Still, disappointment quickly gave way to discovery. We turned our eyes towards Ketchikan itself, a town with stories every bit as interesting as the fjords we missed. The rain poured steadily as we wound our way through town, but our raincoats kept us dry, and Elizabeth happily splashed in puddles along the wooden sidewalks. Creek Street, once a red light district of the 1920s, is now a colorful boardwalk perched above the salmon stream. Its bright shops and historic charm made it one of the most photographed corners in town. We ducked into stores filled with carved totems, Alaskan jade, and sparkling gemstones. Elizabeth's eyes lit up when she found an Australian opal necklace from Coober Pedy, her special treasure from the trip. Nearby, towering totem poles told stories far older than any of us. Carved figures a reminder of the deep native heritage of this land. Perhaps one of the quirkiest finds was the Ketchikan Fire Station's vending machine. Instead of sodas or snacks, it offered t-shirts, mugs, and koozies, all to support the local firefighters. Upon our return to the ship, Elizabeth spent more time in the Oceaneers Club, and we took a chance to slow down on deck, watching life in the harbor unfold. Seaplanes lifted off the water like dragonflies, and fishing boats moved steadily in and out of the port. Clouds swirled around the mountains, and their peaks fading in and out of view like they were playing hide and seek. It was easy to understand why Ketchikan is called the salmon capital of the world. Everywhere you looked, life revolved around the sea and nature. Dinner took us into a world of creativity. Animator's palette is always playful, but tonight it was interactive. Each of us was given a placemat with a blank character to draw. Elizabeth, with her usual imagination, filled her boxes with flair. Once we finished, the staff collected our sketches. Later, as dessert arrived, the dining room came alive. Our crude little doodles, now animated, danced across the big screens, woven into Disney classics. Elizabeth's laughter echoed through the room as her drawing marched along Mickey and Friends.
Oh, I see yours. I see Elizabeth.
As we sailed away, the rain clouds that had defined our day finally broke apart. Golden beams of sunlight pierced the sky, striking the water in broad streaks. The mountains glowed in the early evening light, and the whole harbor seemed to shimmer. Even without misty fjords, the day felt complete, a reminder that sometimes the unexpected detours bring the most lasting memories. Today, we sailed steadily through Queen Charlotte Sound, with our wake carving a silver path across the waters that stretched endlessly to the horizon. After days of mists and clouds, the sun finally broke through, a rare gift in these northern latitudes, flooding the decks with light and making the ocean sparkle like glass. For us, it was a day of both joy and reflection, one last chance to savor the magic before the journey's end. Elizabeth had one final royal audience, a chance to greet Ariel, Cinderella, and Belle. The encounter seemed almost timeless, each princess leaning down, listening closely, sometimes dancing, and making her feel as though she were the only child in the world. It was as if these stories she had grown up with stepped off the screen and into her arms, sealing the memory of a lifetime. To make sure we try and capture all of it one last time, we did a whirlwind walk through the Disney Wonder itself, our floating home for the past week. From the sweeping decks washed in sunlight to the whimsical spaces Elizabeth loved most, like the Oceaneers Club where rainy afternoons turned to endless adventures, these familiar corners of the ship had become a part of our story, woven into the rhythm of our days. Tonight, the Walt Disney Theater hosted its final grand performance, Disney Dreams, an Enchanted classic. With a swirl of music and light, beloved characters appeared one after another, tying together the heart of so many Disney tales. Sitting there, it was hard not to feel the parallels, the way stories remind us to believe, to hold on to wonder, and to keep magic close even as chapters come to a close.
Oh, do you think I'll live happily ever after too, Mom?
That's up to you, Anne-Marie.
Our final full day wasn't about discovering something new, but about holding on to everything we'd already found. The laughter, the beauty, the adventure, and the countless small moments in between. Shortly after dawn, the ship slipped quietly beneath Lionsgate Bridge, the same gateway we had passed under a week before. This time, instead of excitement at what lay ahead, was a gentle stillness, feeling that our story was reaching its final page. Vancouver welcomed us back with a calm, glassy harbor, almost as if it too wanted to whisper goodbye. A shuttle carried us away from the ship and towards the airport. It was a quiet ride, each of us glancing out the window and seeing Vancouver's quaint neighborhoods while we were replaying our favorite memories in our minds. At the airport, our tickets granted us entrance into the Air Canada Lounge, a place we'd be thankful for, where soft chairs, warm food, and hot drinks offered a little haven, far more comfortable than the crowded gates below. But like any good story, there were still a few twists. Runway construction in Denver caused a lengthy delay, and our departure from Vancouver was pushed back by hours. Yet in that calm lounge, with Elizabeth snuggled in and laughter so fresh between us, the waiting felt less like an inconvenience and more like a chance to pause, one last reflection before home. When we finally took off, we peered out the window, drinking in those final glimpses of Canada. Endless green forest, snow-dusted peaks, rivers winding like silver ribbons. An hour before reaching Denver, the skies began to change. Towering thunderheads grew as we attempted to fly around them, sunlight catching their edges in gold and silver. When we finally touched down, well behind schedule, relief washed over us, though it was short-lived. Our connecting flight home was late as well, and though this gave us a chance to make the connection, the clock was ticking for the crew's allowable flight hours. It was nearly midnight when we boarded our plane, rain hammering the runway, thunder rolling in the distance. Half an hour outside of Wichita, storms flared again, illuminating the night sky with spectacular flashes of lightning. Just before 2 a.m., the wheels touched down at Eisenhower National Airport. Safe, tired, home.
How did I get here again? 95 hours of draining all my energy. How did I get here again? Melodramatic nature's gonna do me in. How did I get here again? Maybe if I close my eyes, I'll end up in some Austrian and do my back. You know my life's lemonade. It's not as sweet as people let me to believe. Maybe if I close my eyes, maybe if I close my eyes, maybe if I close my eyes, I'll wake up home. Am I wasting my life away? Am I making a difference in somebody else's day? Wasting my life away. I think I found my yesterday. You're still here?
Like 800 to 1,000 because it's kind of a bowl shape. But muons can drill themselves all the way to the bottom.
Oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Okay.
That's why it's a little bit bluer.
Why is it what? Don't do that, Slim.
It's over. Go home. Go.